now I want to hand it over to the president of Ukraine, who has as much courage as he has determination. Ladies and gentlemen, President Putin. President Putin. We're going to beat President Putin. President Zelensky. I'm so focused on beating Putin, we got to worry about it. Anyway, Mr. President.
I'm better.
You are a hell of a lot better.
President Biden making several gaffes and several errors on the world stage last night at his press conference. However, he is still vowing to remain in the 2024 race. That was painful. Biden posted this on X. I'm not in this for my legacy. I'm in this to finish the job. President Biden also using the high-stakes press conference last night to attack Trump on the border, economy, and NATO. Watch.
Working with Mexico, border encounters have gone down over 50%. The current level is lower today than when Trump left office. Trump's calling for a 10% tariff on everything Americans buy. And economists tell us that that would cost the average American working family another $2,500 a year. My predecessor has made it clear he has no commitment to NATO. He's already told Putin, and I quote, do whatever the hell you want. I'm not handing any of my European allies come up to me and say, Joe, don't run. What I hear them say is, you've got to win.
Yeah, it's really unbelievable to hear Biden attack Trump on the border and on inflation. Yeah, it's not working. Biden's attacks come as former President Trump was meeting with the president of Hungary, Viktor Orban, at Mar-a-Lago last night. Orban says that the two leaders discussed ways to make peace, adding that he believes Trump is going to solve it. Quote. Joining me now is Arkansas Congressman French Hill. He is the vice chairman of the House Financial Services Committee, as well as a member of the Foreign Affairs and Intelligence Committees. Congressman, thanks very much for joining me this morning. What is your reaction to that press conference last night?
I don't think the American people are any more convinced than they were after the debate that President Biden is up to this mission. But I don't think the Democrats have any other path. I think they've probably tested all the options with Kamala Harris and a new vice president, and they don't perform any better against former President Trump's campaign. So I've been struck by how many members of Congress are fearlessly out talking about how Joe Biden shouldn't be their nominee. That's not a good way to go into the Republican convention for Democrats.
Yeah, I mean, do you think Biden will, in fact, be the nominee?
I think it's tough to get an existing nominee out. But when you see the voices we heard this week on the House floor among my colleagues, I think there's a real concerted effort to replace President Biden, and I don't think that's going to stop. And then next week, you're going to have the news dominated by the Republicans in Milwaukee, and that's just going to make it tougher for the Democrats.
Well, I mean, we reported earlier, Congressman, that Biden has not had a cabinet meeting since October of 2023. I mean, is this possible? You're on the Intelligence and Foreign Affairs committees. Do you see Biden? I mean, does anybody have meetings with him? I mean, to me, I think it's extraordinary that he has not had a cabinet meeting since October of 2023. No wonder this country is declining. And no wonder nobody knew when Lloyd Austin had to go to the hospital. He wasn't even missed because there were no meetings.
Yeah, this was made clear when Congressman Lawler of New York questioned Janet Yellen in our hearing this week. She couldn't really report to him the last time she'd met face-to-face with President Biden. I find this shocking. And let me tell you, whether you're in Congress, the Senate, or the presidency, this is a 7-day-a-week, 24-hour-a-day job, and it's not a 10-to-4 job. And we need a president that's sharp and with it and is a leader on all things. And I don't think Joe Biden's living up to that. And that's why I think President Trump's going to be reelected this fall overwhelmingly, and I think he's going to bring his agenda back domestically and in foreign policy to this country.
So let's talk about that economic agenda. For one, you got a chance to question Federal Reserve Chairman Jay Powell during this week's testimony on Capitol Hill. You questioned him on the, quote, activist administrative state. Tell us about that. What did he say to you, and what was your takeaway from these hearings?
I think one of the most consequential things that's happened in recent weeks is the Supreme Court essentially taking the first step at overturning the Chevron doctrine, which was a case from back in 1984 that essentially deferred to independent regulatory agencies and their rulemakings, that they have the force of the law, that effectively they were expressing the intent of Congress. Well, this gives us a chance in the House and in the Senate to convey our Article 1 power. And I was asking Jay Powell, do you support the fact that Chevron is now the law of the land, has been repealed, and that you're going to only certify that you will produce regulatory policies that actually comply with congressional intent? Majority Leader Scalise this week had every committee chairman begin process of contacting all their agencies to make sure that all the regulations under their jurisdiction were in fact compliant with congressional intent. This is a major opportunity to return power to the people through their elected representatives in Congress on the regulatory state. It's a significant move.
I'm so glad you brought this up, because there are a lot of conversations happening as a result of that Chevron decision. And T.D. Cowen told clients that they think that it's going to be a positive for deal making within the big tech sector. What are the implications of that from a business standpoint, in your view?
Well, look, let's just stick with House Financial Services Committee. The Consumer Financial Protection Bureau has no guardrails on it related to the open-ended Dodd-Frank Act of the last decade that allows them to just do anything. I think this gives us an opportunity to really direct the CFPB precisely how they should operate. This is the obligation of Congress. Some say this makes Congress work harder. Well, I hope we will. I'm a big believer in Article 1 and our authority, and not just deferring it to the regulatory agencies. I think you'll see that across the board. We were talking to Chairman Powell about Basel III and making sure that regulatory policy actually is in keeping with the direction of Congress. Congress has directed the agencies to tailor regulatory costs to depository institutions based on size, and yet the agencies are just running forward with European-style ideas that Congress has not approved. So that's why I think we've got a great opportunity.
Yeah, that's a great point. And I love getting into the weeds on policy with you, sir, because I know you're a policy wonk, and I can be that as well. But the Cowen report tells clients this. The federal judge stayed the FTC's new ban on non-competes, citing last week's SCOTUS Chevron ruling. She said that the FTC lacked the authority to issue regulations aimed at promoting competition. This reads through positively for big tech, given the regulations around cloud, Gen AI, and privacy. So this could have real implications for the business sector. So we'll be watching that and certainly keeping a spotlight on it. Let me switch gears and ask your take on the decision to come from President Trump. He's expected to make his vice presidential pick soon. Donald Trump Jr. is going to be speaking ahead of Trump's VP nominee at next week's Republican National Convention. That's according to Axios, and that has some people saying that the timing of Trump Jr.'s speech sparking rumors that President Trump is leaning toward Ohio Senator J.D. Vance. Don Jr. and Vance are close friends, apparently. But, Congressman, every time I have asked President Trump about the criteria that he's using, he keeps saying the same thing. The person has to be battle-tested, ready to become president. He says it over and over again, which leads me to say, well, who's battle-tested? It's a governor. Here's President Trump with me earlier this year in February, or in March. Watch this. What criteria are you using to identify who your running mate is?
Always, it's got to be one thing. It's got to be who would be a good president. I mean, you always have to think that because, you know, in case of emergency, things happen, right? No matter who you are, things happen. It's got to be number one.
So, Congressman, what do you think that means? I know he's considering several senators, J.D. Vance, Marco Rubio, but then you've also got governors like Virginia Governor Glenn Youngkin, North Dakota Governor Doug Burgum, Florida Governor Ron DeSantis. Do you think he's leaning toward a governor or a senator or what? I know it's all guessing.
Well, first, I think you've laid it out perfectly. The president has always repeated you've got to be ready to go as president on day one. Secondly, you have to be a good partner to President Trump and his policy priorities. You've got to have experience. And finally, you've got to bring politics to the table. Who can help President Trump be reelected in the swing states with swing voters? Those are all important characteristics, and I know he's thinking about it. I like somebody with solid experience who's been, as the president says, and as you've said, battle-tested in this fight we have to change the direction of this country. So I think a governor certainly would play well. Governor Youngkin, he did a fantastic event with recently in Virginia. He's certainly got the former governor in North Dakota on his team. So look, I think he's got great choices. And now he has this uncertainty added to the calculus of, oh my gosh, am I running against Biden and Harris, or will it be Harris and a new name to be thinking about over the next few hours? So this is such an incredibly important period of time. Over the next week, we'll know who our Republican nominee vice president is, and we'll know, I think, the direction that the Biden-Harris ticket is taking. And this is all critically important to the future of our country and the American people.
Who do you want to see as Treasury Secretary?
Well, look, he's got, I get asked this question all the time. Are there fantastic people that will come back into a second Trump term and work with President Trump to move our country ahead in the right direction? The answer is absolutely. I think he has a number of choices to make across his whole cabinet. This is not going to be a B team. We don't have to rely on warmed-over Obama people like Joe Biden did. We're going to have bright, talented people across the administration, and I look forward to working with that person in Congress.
I won't be surprised if it's Jamie Dimon. I don't know. We'll see. All right, Congressman, it's good to see you.
Great to see you, Maria.
Nice
Thanks.
to go back and forth on the guesswork. Congressman, thank you. French Hill joining us this morning in New York. We'll see you soon, sir.